Guys, you are not kitted out for winter on the Scottish Hill. I'm sorry, you're just not.
There's a weird difference between having nothing but fond and wonderful memories of a trip, and yet feeling disappointed, feeling like you didn't do enough whilst you were there. This story goes back 4 years ago when me and my good friends went on a road trip to the Cairngorms. The Cairngorms is the biggest national park in the United Kingdom, located in the Scottish Highlands. The Scottish Highlands is one of my personal favorite parts of the world, and in my opinion, one of the best, especially for adventuring and photography. Which leads me to the disappointment I'm referring to here. I personally went on this trip for 3 reasons: to have a great time with my friends, to make a vlog, and to take great photos. I accomplished 2 of these tasks. Now, this is not necessarily a bad thing. Like everything else in life, you need to learn from your mistakes and understand why certain things unfolded the way they did. The task I did not accomplish on this trip, which might be clear and obvious by now, I did not take a single photo that I was happy with. And in this video, I'm going to be showing you said photos and essentially publicly humiliate myself by showing photos that I'm genuinely not very happy with in probably one of the most beautiful locations I've ever been to. That's not a really good sentence at all, is it? All right, let's get started. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say that I had an incredible trip. In no way does this represent this trip being a failure or anything like that. The main purpose of this trip was to go and have a good time with my friends. It is by far one of my most fun memories with my homies, and we had a really good time. And I don't want this video to undermine that in any sort of way capacity. I'm simply just not happy with the photos I came home with. That's it. So starting off with this photo right here, which to be honest is actually, in my opinion, one of the better ones. This is not actually that bad. I kind of like where I was going with this. I really enjoy gas station, middle of nowhere, specifically gas station photos, because for me it represents things I enjoy doing, which is road tripping and being in the outdoors and photography. So every time I see one of these fuel stops, I always like to take a photo. So obviously here my mind was no different. I think the main problem that I have with this photo is actually not with this photo itself, is the fact that I didn't take enough. And I think that's really going to be representative across the board for all these photos, is the fact that I'm not taking enough photos of the same subject or the same environment. See, this environment is so cool. Like, we're basically in a fuel stop in the middle of nowhere with snowy mountains. That's awesome. And there's so much that could be done with this kind of stuff. I could have maybe gone inside the car, rolled down the windows, and maybe drove the car further back and take a photo of the fuel stop with like the background and the through the window, like on a 35mm or something like that. I mean, I don't think this photo is particularly bad. I just think in this environment there's a lot more I could have done with it. Even just shooting it vertically. I only shot this horizontally, which, to be fair, I don't really like vertical shooting all that much, but I do it sometimes for the gram. Yeah. I think what would have been really cool is there were a lot of moments, and I kind of waited for a while for no one to be on this bridge, but there were some moments where people would just kind of like be looking at the view and all that kind of stuff, and I think I should have captured that instead of waiting for it to be completely empty. I think the empty is fine. It's, it kind of like the leading lines is cool, the stormy clouds. I thought black and white would make a lot of sense with this photo. I think the photo itself is fine. I just think it lacks story. I think it's a nice scene. I think the leading lines is cool, leads into the middle of nowhere, it's spooky, it's haunted, and I like that kind of style. I like that kind of spooky type of photography. I just remember being there and wishing and remembering that there was this one person, she was kind of like wearing a hood and she had long hair and she was like looking over the view. And I think she tried to get out of my way for the photo. Me and my friends were like waiting for me to take the photo. They were like behind me, felt like I was in a rush. And so as soon as there was nobody there, I just took this photo and just walked away, or we just walked over the bridge and carried on with our journey. And again, same idea. I should have taken this horizontal. I should have looked over the bridge, gone under. There was a stream right over. There's so many opportunities that could have been had with this sort of setting, and just coming home with this is just very, very disappointing. That's not it's disappointing. I think that's just the only way to discuss it. Again, not terrible. I just could have done so much more.
Oh my god. This is not exactly as easy as I thought it was gonna be. Help me!
I see what I was trying to do with this photo. I like the idea, the sense of journey, the sense of adventure, the sense of, you know, middle of nowhere. I think there are two things I got wrong with this. I don't think I chose the right type of road. So obviously I was in the passenger seat here and I took this photo. I like the motion blur. You know, I did that on purpose. You know, I like the fact that, you know, you see the movement, but at the background, it's not too out of focus. It seems, you know, kind of stable. But you got some motion on the right here within the trees and everything like that. I like that. I think that's pretty cool. I like the idea. We were on the road for ages and there were so many other places where I could have taken this photo and I don't know why I chose to do it here. And to be honest, I don't think it was a choice. I think I just wasn't paying enough attention. I think I was almost just using my camera for photography for the sake of it. And yeah, I could have done so much more with this. I like the idea, I like the story, I love the idea of taking a photo from a car and showing these wilderness areas. And look, it is still a beautiful place. I'm not saying that you can't tell how gorgeous these roads are, but there were so many other opportunities where I could have done it. I also think maybe I could have benefited from trying this on a wider lens, maybe my 9mm. That could have maybe worked. I don't know, did I even have my, yeah, I did have my 9mm back then. I can't remember a time where I've been more frustrated editing than this photo right here. I mean, just look at look at this frame. It is probably one of the most crazy castle looking, just gorgeous, this open road leading to this gorgeous castle. I think it was a hotel, but a lot of castles turn into things that used to be castles that turn into hotels up in Scotland. And just look at this. I mean, you know, it's it's cloudy, but it's daylight, so the light's actually really nice. You got snow, you got mountains, you got pine trees, you've got a freaking castle, you've got an open road, leading lines, you got everything. And this is what I came up with? You kidding me? Like, yeah, it's one of those things. It's just one of those things where I know now, me being the way I am right now, like I would be at this location and I would be smoking this. I don't even know if I'd come up with better photos, but I'd A, come up with more. This is the only angle I got. And B, I would have been scoping this entire place. I probably would have had 42 images just of this location right here. Maybe even 42 good images. I'm not trying to say that I would have gotten every single one of them right, but I would have gotten one or two right and I would have done so much better than this. This is terrible. It's not even aligned properly. Like, I don't, why, I'm probably using the right lens. I think I'm shooting on the 35 right now again, probably the lens I would have gone for, but what am I doing? Why is this all I could get? Why didn't I get a shot, even just a basic one where I'm just like in the middle? Yes, I could crop it. By the way, the camera I was using back then was the GH5, not the GH7, because I didn't have the GH7 back then. Back then, you know, and it wasn't that long ago, I really enjoyed photography and I loved it and I knew it was a craft that I wanted to get into more, same with filmmaking and a bunch of other stuff, but I think I was still trying to decide what I wanted to do. And I think back then I was like, the only photos that would have worked for me would have been like crazy landscapes and this and that. Now I'm like, I'm looking at this frame, I'm like, holy cow, I was standing there. I could have done so much more because this is like me. Like I love, you know, castles and documenting architecture in remote, beautiful places. I love that kind of style. And I do think that is a valid point here, is I think, you know, as we go through, I think the photos that actually turned out better, which are coming, were more in line with the style that I was into back then, which was kind of like just pure landscape. And now I'm into a lot more than that. I love landscape. I want to take my landscapes even further. But this would have been a scene that I would have had so much fun with now. And it's just a little bit really disappointing to be just looking and only having this.
This is what I'm talking about, guys.
Okay, so this location was probably where I think I kind of put my photography hat on a little bit more. I got some decent stuff. I don't think the photos themselves are particularly bad. I just think they're kind of boring. I think I actually managed to make it look a little bit more epic than it was. It was a really cool place, don't get me wrong. But it was kind of flat. You know, the landscape was kind of like, wasn't as tall as I was like, so there's a lot of sky space. And the foreground was just this lake, so I did find these rocks here. I did manage to get this one in black and white, which is definitely my favorite. I think this condition suited black and white really well with those really haunted clouds, and kind of like tried to soften up the image a little bit more. And I think this one actually works out. This is not portfolio, but this is not a photo that I would say, okay, I completely scuffed it up. I think I did manage to capture the environment pretty well. And I don't have too much of an issue with this set specifically. This one, I don't really know what's wrong with this. Again, I think it would work with the layers, but the layers are just too up. Like, you know, there's no depth is what it's good. Like, I like it in landscapes where you can kind of like see the 3D view. This feels very 2D. And I don't really know how I could have approached this differently, to be honest. I was using the wide lens. Yeah, I don't really know. I think, I actually think that, believe it or not, this location was harder than it looks. I think it looks like a very easy location to photograph, but it's actually a lot more tricky. I'm not gonna beat myself up too much on this one because I did actually give this a good shot. And I think that's sort of one thing I want to talk about is, whilst I was on this trip, as I kind of mentioned in the intro, there were 3 things I wanted to do. I wanted to be with my friends. That was the most important. It was our first group road trip. So that was so important to me, just to have a good time with the boys. And I did. That was a 100% success. I wanted to make a vlog because back then I was watching a lot of like Sam Colder videos and a lot of other like, you know, cool travel vlogs and this and that. So I was like, oh, I want to try that. So I was putting actually a lot of energy into the filming, getting a ton of B-roll, you know, drone flights, time lapses, all this kind of stuff. And, you know, now, you know, a few years down the line, I've realized that actually photography is more what I want the main subject to be, and I want to make films around that. So I love shooting time lapses. I love flying my drone. I love getting footage, but I wanted to tell that story. Whereas I wasn't telling a photography story. I was just kind of like doing like a more cinematic road trip film. And, you know, I think that's another thing to learn about. You know, I think now I still love making films and I love telling stories, but I want to capture more of the story elements. I want to capture more of me doing my thing, my friends doing their thing. I don't have that much footage of them doing that. I'm just getting environmental footage. One reason I'm making this video and this exercise is I think this is actually a very good way of just learning from your mistakes, learning why things didn't go according to plan, and not just saying, oh, I'm a bad photographer. Because I think that's just unfair on myself. I think I've taken tons of photos since this trip that I'm much more happy with, where I've learned why it didn't work out on this trip. So yeah, I think there were a lot of back and forth in my head. And on top of that, you know, we were just trying to have fun as friends as well, you know. Now this is another example where we were at a phenomenal location. And these photos, look, I don't think that they're particularly bad. I don't think they're particularly bad. I just think that they're, I don't know. I don't really know what it is that I don't like about these photos. Maybe it's just a placebo effect because I just wasn't happy with all the photos I took. Maybe this is just a reminiscent of that. Maybe these photos are actually pretty good, but you know, I just wasn't happy with the whole trip, so I just kind of like wrote these off as well. I don't think that there's anything particularly wrong with this composition. I think I'm glad that I took these photos. I mean, look how stormy those clouds are. It's pretty epic. The trees were just so green. It was raining just before we got there. So the clouds, everything was so low, and it was so Scotland. It felt so Scotland. And I actually don't mind these photos. I think this is actually one of my favorites from the trip. You know, I think this is okay. But again, I think kind of makes sense from the same idea. I think I could have just done a bit more. I could have used different focal lengths. I could have zoomed in a little bit more. You know, gotten the, you know, the 70 to 200 or the 70 to, what is my 45 to 200? But I could have just tried a little, again, similar to all this other stuff. I could have just tried more. I'd say this is my favorite of the whole trip, for sure. I think this is where I actually did it right. I did this place justice. I mean, the sun was just starting to come out on the right. I did use a mask just to help amplify it a little bit. The lake was just so gorgeous, and just, I can't even begin to describe how gorgeous this spot was. This was the last spot, and we actually ended up driving back to London from here. That was the hardest drive of my life, because leaving this place, I love the fact that I shot this one vertically. I love the fact that we've got the lake in the foreground, this, you know, other kind of lake in the forest in the midground, and then the mountains in the background and a little bit of that sky. I am very, very happy with that. I might even go back in and crop this just a little further down, to be honest, 'cause I don't think we actually need all of this sky. But yeah, this photo, this is where I can actually pat myself on the back and be like, well captured. Very good, great timing. Because I actually remember that it was very, very cloudy that day. Like I said earlier, it was raining and the sun was just starting to poke out, and I was done with the filming. I finished my time lapse and everything, and I saw that sun poke out. I was like, oh, yeah, sorry. So I just went ahead and grabbed it and I got this frame. And that's the photography reflex I'm talking about. And I saw other of those opportunities during so many other moments of the trips, and I just didn't take a photo, whereas this time I did. And it worked. It paid off. This is a photo that I'm happy to look at. This is a photo that I'm like, cool, I can work with this. And of course, it was the last one. So, you know, save the best for last. That's how you do it. But yeah, I think, you know, the moral of the story is, A, don't be scared of re-looking at your work. Don't be scared of trying things again and, you know, giving your photos another chance. Don't delete your photos, because even though these photos aren't that great, they still do remind me of a wonderful time. They remind me of a wonderful trip. And all bad photos, or, you know, not great photos, it can still provide that. So that's really important. Don't always look at photography as what can go in the portfolio. That's a very negative way of looking at it, and probably means that you won't take that many photos. Think about photography as capturing moments, capturing the atmosphere. And obviously, as hobbyists and as professionals, or people who just love cameras and love photography and love doing this stuff, obviously we want to make sure that our work is as good as we can. Obviously, we want to capture it as well as we can. But, you know, I'm not going to beat myself up too much, because the video that we made at the time is probably not the same video I would make now, but we change, we grow, we learn, we change our style, we understand other things that we like, you know, other type of movies, the kind of films, the adventure films I'm going to make now, which are going to be made, are going to turn out differently to that one. And that's totally fine. That's just evolution. That's just changing. That's just growing up. That's just adapting. And looking back at these photos has actually been quite fun, because I'm like, well, I'm not actually going to blame this too much on the fact that I suck. I think some of the photos kind of suck, but I don't think I do. I just think that my head was elsewhere, and that just, you know, sacrificed creative photography, because photography is a very difficult genre. It requires a lot of work. It requires a lot of thought process. It's not just go to somewhere beautiful, take a photo, and you'll have a great photo. That's not how it works. I'm actually glad to see that there are one or two of these that I could salvage to something interesting, maybe for the photo journal. And yeah, when we go back, which I will, I'm gonna spend a lot more time thinking about the photography, as well as being with my friends, and film the moments that would mean more to me now, that can make the films that I want to make going down the road. Hope you guys enjoyed this one, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next video. Do I do the hat? No, that's too... I'm gonna do the hat.